Sonia, what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for?
They're having
Somebody can be looking for it.
Nice one.
It's nice, right?
Yeah. I don't like Macs.
Oh, I hate Mac.
I want to people like
You should get one. Dude, they just released the newest version of this, and it's like it's all matte black. Like, see how mine's like silver?
That's nice though.
They released
Silver? Nice.
Bro, the matte black looks so good. Like, I think
How much you got?
this is like if you get it fully souped up, it's like 2,000. But like literally,
more than Mac.
bro, it's literally like it becomes like a laptop. You know how like it's like a tablet, so it comes off.
Yeah.
But like it's like a laptop replacement. You know how like some people go like, oh, they have like a tablet that works as a laptop replacement, but it doesn't really because it can't like handle like the horsepower. This does, so it's like 10 times better.
I think double the price of a Mac.
Daniel, can't you just put on your laptop?
I don't think I have a gas station like that.
It's fine.
I have it on here. Do you want me to just pull it up?
No, I think it's even the ones that I've uploaded, the financials are glitching. Like it didn't upload. Yeah, there's something wrong with it.
Is it now adjusting?
How much of it is there for?
No, it's all on his laptop. It's just his laptop doesn't have like a HDMI.
I don't want like Sophie's computer in there.
You can't plug his laptop in.
Like private stuff getting exposed. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Are we ready? Yeah?
All right.
Constructing surgery on someone is a lot like repairing a building. Just as a patient has to go see their surgeon before an operation in order to make sure that they have the right health and state of mind and are ready to go through with a procedure, construction site worker needs to visit an actual site, make sure that the building is ready for any demolition or repairs, and make sure that the process can go through. Same way when once this patient has completed the surgery, they need to go through post-operation checks with the doctor to make sure that everything with the recovery is progressing smoothly. Just like that, the construction worker also could receive. Construction worker also goes to construction sites after building repairs to make sure that the work completed has been done effectively. So we can see the two do have some similarities, but the main difference between the two is not actually just, or not the most obvious difference being the work that they complete, but the actual way that they complete, but the processes or the tools to complete that work. So a construction worker uses simulations as well as different sorts of technology to really make sure that the work that they're doing is the most accurate and the most calculated to actually create the most effective complete the project most effectively. But unlike that, surgeons have to rely on human intuition and actual, not just models and situations, or models and experiments that they complete before the surgery takes place, but they actually have to use human intuition and rely on human error during the actual surgery to follow through. So taking into account the different differences between those two, we can see that our world today really poses a situation where healthcare in Canada has too many patients, few doctors, and a lack of facilities. So this means for surgeons that are experiencing that hospitals need to determine where they can where they can serve these problems. So having a high volume of patients with a minimal amount of doctors limits the quality of service that you can actually portray. So this means that the quality, it increases the amount of mistakes that you can have due to the increase, due to the speed that patients must be seen at, as well as the wait times increase through mistakes or complications that occur with surgery lead to second or repeat visits from patients. And that again is posing major problems.
So to recap, the issue here in Canada is that there are long wait times and low quality of service. Specifically when we look at surgeons, let's take hip and knee replacements, a common surgery performed in today's day and age. Currently, surgeons are relying on their own human eye to be able to find the exact location that this replacement artificial joint needs to be implemented. And this is a huge issue because we know that even a surgeon with 25 years of experience is prone to error. And so even if it's that 1-2% of the time, these are patients that are going in hoping to get a treatment and walking out in a worse condition. And so that's why myself and Johan are here today to present to you Precision Eye. Precision Eye is very innovative technology, so kind of stick with me as we try to work through this one together. So it's a very small 3D biological camera with laser sensors implemented in it. So I'll get into an example later, which will have a bit more context to you, but essentially what this allows it to do is accurately detect the locations of body parts underneath the skin. Secondly, it has an artificial intelligence component incorporated into it so that it can really tell where those human body parts is, and this is really the main driving factor, to be able to tell exactly where this new artificial joint needs to be put into the body. And so it's determining the precise alignment locations. And finally, it has a software connection to the surgeon's computer so that all the tracking is going through them and they're really holding that sensitive health information. And really what the value that we're providing here is with hip and knee alignment, there are a lot of mistakes in the market currently, and so it's reducing the number of mistakes. On a wait time perspective, currently people are waiting a long time. This is reducing the amount of time spent on surgery because the locations are provided there for the surgeons, and so it's creating quicker surgeries and less return visits due to these mistakes. So this all seems pretty complicated. So let's take an example. So Steve is a surgeon. He has patients come in all the time for hip and knee replacements. Let's take a hip replacement example. So if someone has a painful hip joint, they're going to need an artificial hip joint to be implemented. And so currently, Steve is going to kind of slice open the area. He's going to look to see exactly kind of where the hip joint is. Is going to go through some methods to be able to remove that joint. And when he implements the new artificial hip joint, it's all based off of his kind of human eye and his experience to be able to see where exactly that joint is going. With Precision Eye, there is now a small tiny camera that is working alongside him, a hardware piece that is connecting to the actual patient's body. And so that camera is now saying exactly where and providing kind of laser for where he should be implementing that new joint. And so what all this is leading to is more effective surgeries, less mistakes, and reduced wait time. It makes a lot of sense because for the customer, as I said, less mistakes. For us, kind of Zoe, it's a philanthropic play, so we're helping patients, but we're also, especially kind of for AMP as well, we're helping Canadians, and finally, it's a high growth investment opportunity.
Can we maybe shift the conversation a little bit, talking about the surgeons themselves and what you're going to drive adoption and convince them that these types of innovative technologies, because oftentimes we introduce disruptive technology, there's a lot of pushback from existing surgeon bases and populations.
Certainly. So this is really where the kind of relational play with the surgeons comes in. So with Zoe really has a strong kind of personal play at this and really doesn't really understand the market yet to date, but that's where hiring health service sales professionals will come in to really establish those relationships with the surgeons and to educate them. Because although they may have been doing this for years, they understand they've made some errors. And so this is really something to work alongside them, not to replace them, to help augment their practice. But it might be important to walk through, especially at the same time, like why the solution makes sense from kind of a defensibility, feasibility, profitability perspective. So you have
Absolutely. So kind of in a sense of why this would make sense for surgeons, we're really just leveraging existing technology from other fields. So we're going to be using construction and actually military defense technology. Although it seems kind of strange to be applying that to the human body, we're using the same technology in terms of mapping out areas or spaces as well as depths to actually help with these services. We believe this is going to be a defensible strategy because we're going to try to be, it is proprietary tech and it's going to be the first Canadian manufacturer to implement this in Canada. As we will explain later on in the profits, in profitability, we're looking for cumulative net profit of 14.8 million by year 5.
But given the fact that hospitals are very budget constrained, you're asking them to give up technology that they already have, which would be an MRI, and substitute that with a camera for a specific type of surgery?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we can kind of see with that in terms of why hospitals would actually want to invest in technology like this is because what seemed to be described there was kind of looking into diagnostic tech, or either way, hospitals do make continuous advancements or investments into their tech to make sure that it is relevant for surgeries today. But what we were looking at in terms of diagnostic tech, or where they would be making cheaper investments, is that a lot of these solutions are really not solving where the problem occurs, where the problem really occurs about wait times, or where the problem is created in terms of the surgery, but they're reactive solutions in terms of the adoption requires patient.
And this isn't necessarily a substitute for an MRI because that's for very kind of specific and different types of industry, more general ones. Whereas this is specifically focusing on with surgeons and specifically hip and knee replacements, which are very kind of specialized surgeries, and you can't just rely on them.
But the problem is that with respect to wait times is actually access to operating rooms.
That's correct, and that's kind of the problem that we talked about and walked through, is that at the end of the day, with the public healthcare system, ideally to get more doctors and more hospitals, but realistically, taxpayer dollars only go so far, and with increasing demand. So really the way that we looked at it was, how do we increase efficiencies within our current system? We're not going to necessarily change the entire system, but how can we effectively implement technological solutions? And we feel like this is a main area with aging population in Canada. This is going to be an increasingly important health problem. And as in kind of the information you presented, $2.6 billion is wasted annually just on mistakes in injuries, in surgeries. And so this really helps to combat that wasted funds that we put towards.
To your point about $2.6 billion, 2/3 of that is related to adverse related drug events. So I'm curious how you landed on knee and hip replacements as your recommendation.
Sure. Yeah. And maybe it's important to walk through maybe some of the other alternatives we considered too. Do you want to start with that? Yeah.
Sure. So we really chose to focus on knee and hip replacement as opposed to things like other areas such as post-surgery patient software, which may be more directly related in the ideal consumer mind about helping to reduce wait times, as you don't want individuals to be coming back into the hospital and adding to that problem. So the reason that we wanted to focus on the surgery again there is because anything to do after surgery is what we view as being a retroactive solution to the problem. So we want to stop the problem from actually occurring, and that right there is going to prevent any additional wait time, at least from repeat services that are occurring. We also believe that any other additional things on this, things like actual post-surgery software, could actually lower their quality of service, or are entirely dependent on patients' compliance to actually follow up with things like apps or online softwares that doctors may utilize to actually, let's say, not bring patients into the hospital and actually conduct that service online. It might not be delivering the same level of quality of service that an in-store or in a hospital solution.
Specifically in relation to drugs, that's really, you're trying to solve a consumer behavior issue, whether someone takes their drugs when they're supposed to, or effectively monitors their own treatment outside of their one appointment with their doctor. That's a much bigger issue around compliance that we can talk about. And past studies from local startups in the med tech field, specifically one, Penta Medical, have shown that there's only really a 15% compliance rate with patients. And so, we've considered apps and other technologies to combat that problem, but we felt that really the main efficiency with reducing wait times and reducing mistakes in hospitals is with surgery, specifically with hip and knee.
Quick question.
Yeah.
in order to, so you guys have a pretty quick timeline here, assuming you're adopting right away almost. How close is the technology actually being used in the first year? So now you mentioned things like military usage. Things like this usually are based on data, and there's really no medical data in military right now with the applications. So are we actually at the point where we can start in year one, or is that?
So we project that it'll be close to the end of year one to allow for a bit of an R&D period. We'll be working closely with, it's a combination of 3D imaging softwares and hardware applications in construction in military, but obviously an adaptation needs to be made for this specific industry and field. So that's where that bit of lag time will come in. On the artificial intelligence side, there are some companies out there currently working on artificial intelligence for the human body applications. So not trying to reinvent the wheel, but using existing technologies that are out there and adapting it specifically to this circumstance and taking different solutions and compiling it into one is kind of our target approach.
What's the cost benefit trade-off a surgeon or a healthcare facility or hospital is making here, and what's the return or payback on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And based off of the data that we have, we don't necessarily have all the answers, but what I can tell you is that currently billions of dollars are spent every year wasted on mistakes in surgeries. And this, our product only really costs an upfront cost of $20,000, which may seem high, but considering the amount of efficiencies that will be brought in as a result of this solution, we see that the trade-off will be quite high. And so maybe we can walk through some of the financials at this point. So if you go back one. So we assume that we're targeting specifically the medium to large hospitals in Canada to start with, because those are really where people are going to get these surgeries. And so in each hospital, we assume to be around 20 of these surgeons specifically for these related injuries. With a $25,000 price tag per product, comes in at a pretty competitive rate in the market, and a 65% cost of goods sold. If you go to the next one, we'll obviously be taking some losses and profits in year one, but over the long term, this really is a growth opportunity, as we've seen with
Sorry to interrupt. I'm more focused on not the financials for you, but on the financials for the buyer. So they're putting out a $25,000 payout per machine, call it. How many surgeries do they need to do for that $25,000 to be worth it?
So we don't think that it's something that is quantified by just one surgery. We think that, or a certain number of surgeries, we think that if you were actually able to perform that first surgery right and avoid that individual actually having to come back and add that additional cost to the hospital system, that would be a way for us to quantify it. So we don't have a specific answer for that number, but if we're using the cases facts of around the average, using a 20% rate after going through surgeries that individuals do need to come back for some sort of service as provided, that averages to around $4,900 on the healthcare system. That was specific to one type of case. So we were looking at the hip replacement surgery, we use sort of the same analysis.
And really the cost of the surgery mistake, we feel, is priceless at this point. You take an old senior that is struggling with hip issues, they come in because they have a painful hip joint. They want to be leaving with a healthy hip joint and in better health. But instead, what they've done is they've spent time, risk to be able to undergo this surgery, thousands of dollars costed by the healthcare system, and they're walking away in an even worse situation. And so for human society as a whole, this is a huge issue that we feel like it's something that needs to be addressed right away, and with Precision Eye, this solution is possible. And so there's definitely some risks and with this type of solution. As kind of mentioned, what if there is a lack of interest and adoption from Canadian hospitals? And as much as, philanthropically, we'd love to stay here in Canada, the private system in the States makes a lot of sense in terms of an expansion project. And so if things don't work out here, that's kind of really our next step. In terms of imitation, this is where really intellectual property and kind of first to market advantage will come in, but really locking down some important patents for this technology. And finally, there was a bit of concern that it may not be feasible compared to where capabilities of current tech is today. And so to address this issue, we suggest really understanding the MVP needs of the surgeons at this point and implementing solutions kind of with a heavy investment into R&D, but that initially meet their needs and working with them from there to implement a more robust solution.
So future growth. So what we're looking for in order to expand Precision Eye in the future is to move into the U.S. market after we've established presence in Canada after about 5 years of operation, exploring to other injuries past knee and hip. So although this is primarily focused around bone surgeries, moving into other orthopedic areas or orthopedic areas, and finally to incorporate a robotic arm to automate surgeries. So it was brought up earlier that we'd like the future of surgery perhaps to be as much have as much automated assistance as possible in order to really mitigate the problem of surgeon error actually occurring and leading to these repeat visits. So that's where we would see our company moving in the future. So in order to make this a reality, the first thing that we'd like to do within the first year of operation is really go through regular research and development and filing for a patent, making sure that this is actually receiving the Health Canada and regulatory board approval. In the testing phase from years 2019 to 2020, we'll be moving on with trialing at our initial hospitals, starting out with 3 hospitals in our first year of operations, moving forward with the design iterations based off of feedback, and finally establishing a case study and proof of concept to really implement this across Canada. Finally, the long-term buyer contracts are really where we see substantial revenue growth as we can roll these out to future hospitals. So
with Precision Eye, really everybody wins. The customer wins because you have more accurate hip and knee replacement surgeries, creating less mistakes, and specifically for the surgeons, they feel a greater sense of pride knowing that the customers that they're treating are in better health 100% of the time. For us, Zoe, it really meets our philanthropic interests. We have an aunt that's undergoing some issues in health, and we understand that going forward, this will be a big issue for the Canadian population as demographic changes into this baby boomer segment takes over kind of the senior age demographic. And finally, for the investors, a high growth opportunity, particularly appealing for social investors that would be willing to work this, to be along for the ride, and 14.8 million cumulative net profit.
So to reiterate what we've gone over today, we believe this is a defensible idea because we would be the first in the market to do so. It's a new sort of technology applying it to the healthcare industry that hasn't previously been done. We think that using feasible technology from other industries, as well as Dan mentioned, being researched today, allows this to be something that Zoe can actually implement. And finally, it will have the financial performance that she's looking for, as well as the allows her to solve an issue that's close to her heart. Thank you.
What I am going to say is this team had a substantial disadvantage because they found out at the last minute that their third, and Itai generally handles that.
So we have to figure it out. Something we need to why did you leave? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So, I guess
we're working through a solution. A lot of, well, we wanted something innovative because we knew that's really an entrepreneurship track. That's what we need to win. We figured that this would be something that no other team would pitch, but at the same time, like, it makes a lot of sense. It would be a hard solution to try to explain, so hopefully that went okay.
Do you know much about knee and hips, or just curious? I'm not being facetious.
Yeah. So this solution that we took was kind of pulled off of a pretty successful startup that came out of Velocity. And they've done exactly this, but have gone to the States. So we tried to really apply it to Canada. All of our
Nothing wrong with that.
all of our like solutions that are innovative and make sense seem to be pulled off of other successful startups.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
There's a lot. No, your question is the same as mine. It's just like we were trying to understand what's your credibility of knowing how effective this is. Replacement.
Yeah, I mean, my mom's had both hips replaced. My mom has had both hips replaced, and Leah actually participated in hip replacement surgeries. It's a pretty brutal process, very much. Now, you're right in that it's very much a judgment that the surgeon makes. But at the same time, I'm not convinced that imaging is necessarily the issue with that. It's more that when they finally slam the top of the hip joint into the femur, they have to be right in terms of they literally use a hammer. But my point being, and all of that, the point that I'm trying to make there is that if you have evidence of this being successful somewhere else, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying that. We're talking about a Canadian solution, Canadian market. But okay, right? It means you can't go to the States with it afterwards, but if you're making millions of dollars here, I don't see a problem.
I agree with what you're saying, once you land on hip and knee replacement, but if I look at the case, it says 2/3 of adverse events are caused by drugs, so the remaining third, assuming hip and knee replacements are a chunk of that remaining third, it seems like a bigger opportunity if you're trying to make a social impact would be on average drug-related deaths. So I know what your logic is once you land on hip and knee replacements, I'm just not sure how you get to hip and knee replacements.
I think we found that as I was trying to kind of explain in our answer, with like drug use and all that, that's really a huge consumer behavior shift. And we felt like that was almost like too big of a problem to try to tackle with an innovative solution, and present it in 5 minutes plus a Q&A after that. And we felt like we would have taken a lot more heat on that. And then as well, like that, a lot of other teams would probably pitch something, a reminder for you to take your drugs, or
Sometimes the simplest solutions don't make sense. Hip and knee replacements, I'm sure, extremely complicated as well. That's a good point.
Which means that there should have been an alternative discussion at the beginning. In the first 3 minutes, right, we talked about that when a case gives you, when you're looking at really part of this is strategy, honestly, in terms of winning the case comp. And so what you've identified here is that a lot of teams will probably pitch a reminder for taking medications. Shut them down. This is why we're not going into that. You had an excellent answer when he called you out and he said, what about this? And your answer is here again. You're talking about a shift in consumer behavior. Even if we send them reminders, we're asking for something substantially human nature to change. And so given that that's very hard, very messy, very difficult, it makes sense to go where we can still have a sizable impact without that barrier. So shut the other teams down. You had an excellent answer.
Good job, guys. I actually just have a couple questions on the solution for clarity. Was it selling the hardware, or were you guys just selling like a bundled hardware device with a software component?
The latter.
The latter. So just like a little bit of feedback on that one. I think like having a per user, per subscription is what you guys essentially kind of saying about $10 a year.
No, sorry, that's just hardware cost.
That's not the one-off cost. Yeah, so like, I think you might just want to be a little bit more clear in terms of like what solution you're actually providing and what the actual pricing model is. So typically something that you're describing with the software component, there's a lot of components for that in the back end around like the actual production data, where's that data being stored, right? Every time there's that image being taken, that's a transaction record. I think you want it to be clear whether you're providing that as a service or something that the hospital have to take on their own software components. So when we think of implementation, when we think of exactly how does the hospital value this as a solution? Are you providing like the full managed service? Is it like an application? Are you the ones holding the data? Are they holding data? These are like all questions again from an adoption perspective to my earlier question on surgeons actually buying into this technology. And you might just want to be a little more clear on exactly like what are you selling, what's included, what's not included, like where is data, where is not data, and potentially as well, there's a software component as you just mentioned, pricing that as a per usage basis type of service versus like a one-time cost. It's probably more like a monetization model for yourselves. Those cloud services or anything that's actually done with a transaction element is usually priced by transaction. So just a little bit of feedback there. But overall, good presentation and
I thought first day considering you didn't have a member that you used to working with. Fantastic job. You still covered off all the right grounds. I know you probably sensed from my question. I just couldn't understand. We totally appreciate your answer, especially like on the righteousness of the actual thing. Like you have to go beyond dollars. I wasn't trying to make a business case, but there is a large economic case in the healthcare budget for things like this, right? Because there's new innovative technologies that are coming into space all the time in healthcare, and healthcare tech, you need to have a bit of a lens of like, it doesn't need to be literally number of dollars saved for surgeries, but you had there a bunch of takeaways that weren't very righteous, which is reduced wait times and all the sort of things that add up to cost, right? So there's a next step that I'm sure you've done with the third person anyway, but just be cognizant of like each of those three stakeholders, what's the business case or economic case for each of them too? In the customer's case, in this particular world, it's gotta be something, you're kind of getting your Johan a little bit there. It's sort of like, what is the cost of this per patient? And if you just have a $25,000 outlay and that thing was servicing 10 patients or 5 patients, well, you covered it. And the year this many surgeries happen, so no problem, you're covering your costs. There's something heuristically about that you could have gotten to, but I think it's important. I think it's important to make that case. It's really tough to justify any doctor, surgeon, or hospital spending even 25 grand nowadays per machine, just given how tight their budgets are without that business.
Yeah, and, if I remember correctly from your financials, just something to think about, that you had a per surgeon basis, if I'm not mistaken, within a hospital?
Per unit for each surgeon.
Okay, but it was based on the number of surgeons, right?
Yes.
If I understood it
Right,
correctly.
right.
Like, why wouldn't the hospital just buy one for the hospital, that the surgeons would then share?
Good point. I guess that, then it would only be one at a time, one year surgery at a time, and ideally you'd want to do many at a time, but, maybe that was just a wording thing, I should have changed it to per, hospital instead of per surgery.
Yeah, so the cost benefit becomes more attractive when you do again per inmate basis, right? Because now that upfront risk is like reduced for the hospital, actually covers more than their budget, their own fees. And for you guys, it's actually favorable on the upside piece, because if you actually drive good adoption, then you're going to see all that rewards of the use of your software.
One of the things, sanity wise, I don't really know the answers either, but if you're comparing to MRIs, $25,000 for an MRI is like just a low amount of money. So if your volume is going to be comparative to an MRI, I want to sanity check that too. I don't know whether the revenues actually match up to be like volume for those. I suspect they will.
Yeah, I was expecting like $500,000.
Yeah.
$25,000 for a medical device is.
For that kind of event,
Yeah.
it's funny, but if your comparison is an MRI machine, there's a big difference.
Is that, are you familiar with it? Is that the one that's in the States?
I'm not familiar with the pricing of it.
So it might be-
Call it or
Because
something.
actually, to Ashish's point though, if that's like part of the waiting time occurs because of access to diagnostics, so things like MRIs. So if this becomes a substitute for it or an enhancement to it, that might actually help with wait times as well. That's one of the bottlenecks. The bottlenecks are access to advanced imaging and access to operating room time. You had a really good answer to that, by the way. The fact that if we increase efficiency, then we can push people more through the system more. So it's good.
Are we done with you? Sorry.
Yeah, this wasn't Q&A, this
This
was
is all from the
feedback.
Right, sorry. So from the feedback perspective though, I remember your presentation last time, that you guys came to the office and all that. Definitely saw, like, I know you guys were down in some last minute changes and all that, but I've definitely seen improvements since then, so that's really good stuff. I think you guys are excellent for that, just for sure. So yeah, I just want to give you guys a good note that that's good job on taking the notes and doing that since last time.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're a little bit crunched for time, but before you all get up, just a quick few things. Number one, Sophie's brought her taco bar from last night. It's in the staff lounge, so what you guys are gonna do is you're just gonna head over there, quickly grab your food and come back so you guys can all watch marketing and just eat while watching. We also have brought coffee, so there's coffee in the back if you guys need that. And we're just gonna have Charity do a quick spiel, and then we'll have Flip say a few words. No? Okay.
Hey, let's get free canister ready.
Alright, over to 26.
140.
Hey, guys, Charity's gonna do a quick announcement for you all. So it's fine that half our team isn't here, but for those that are here, we'll make the announcement. Can I get a drum roll, please? As of December, we are at 684.6 hours, guys. And that means we're only 20 hours away from our goal, and we still have the month of December. So I think we're gonna go past our goal from the beginning of the year. So congratulations and make me proud. Okay, and then can we get another?
Alright, so we've raised $16,878 so far. Kind of on track, given that we still have a couple of SOS sessions left for the final. But yeah, again, thank you so much for all of your help, especially for Coffee Grease and Shuffle. Thanks so much for coming out and supporting charity. In terms of most charity hours, yeah, forget the drum roll, but we're just gonna go ahead and announce it. So in terms of most charity hours, the debate team with 100 hours.
Hussein.
And just a quick announcement. I'm speaking.
She's mad.
Just a quick reminder, December has just arrived, so the opportunities we still have are the MLS games. So December 21st, we're going as a team. As many people we can get, that's amazing. Right now we have 14 people going, so let's hope that the rest of the team can also show up. We have SOS sessions. For the BU 111 session happening, SOS is looking for 2 more helpers, so if anybody needs to get in hours, let us know. And there's also gift wrapping happening at Conestoga Mall, and if you have any personal volunteering that you're doing on the side, please contact Matthew or myself so we can get those hours submitted as well. Yeah, thank you.
Insane.
Make sure you're back for 140 and that you're not walking in after presentation.
I don't leave by example.
Is it talkable? Judges only?
What?
Judges only, right?
No, we have everybody.
Social awesome. It's marketing yourself. It's usually good. We don't say that.
This was from the
Oh, cool.
I just basically like.
Which makes sense to do that for
Yeah.
It's actually really cool. No, that's actually good because, That's so tough, right?
I have one. But I would say we have and I didn't think it was as well because I'm so stale. Like put it on the shoot here. Today it's just like he asked the question. So I never touched this. The 2 other guys, like we did our together and so I get black.
I don't really know
Oh. Okay.
I want to get out of here.
I don't know what that is, but
Okay, shall we?
yes. Johan, come on.
Yeah.
Are you guys in the
I think you just do like.
No.
Oh, what about earlier?
All right, I'm good. I just haven't had lunch.
Who's my name? Jonathan, are you the Waterloo Regional School Director coordinator?
I'm not.
How did it go?
I came third out of 7 on the dot.
Yeah.
With 3,500 total votes.
Six.
So that's good.
Good first shot at it.
And I'm glad I'm not actually doing it because I'll just be away for a amount of time between the next 40 days or something that I don't care about. But
What was the salary for it?
it's actually $1,000 a year. A third of it's tax free, so anywhere between 16 and 18,000 effective salary, depending on.
Don't they have like a crazy like expense? They like expense both shit up.
You pay some guy expensive trip to Hawaii, but
Yeah, so that's reading up on it. I was like, why is Ron doing this? Like, I'm gonna check how much there's definitely money in something.
it's not the money. Like, it was more just a stepping stone. It would have been a good like to get money in the market for something else, potentially, but I don't want to go into politics. Like it's a waste.
Yeah.
You don't make any money. You can't make any change.
Kind of like a.
It's not the US where you have power.
Exactly. Maybe I'll go down to the US and be a state governor or something. Like the governor is like the president of the state. Well, I like to be the president of Montana or Wyoming.
Why those states specific?
Because there's 50 people in the states. Well, one, I would never get elected in California. I would not be disappointed if I never step foot in California in my entire life.
I love the amount of thought you put into this.
Sorry?
I love the amount of thought you put into this.
Well, Wyoming has good people, right? And then very few people.
Do you have American citizenship?
I do not. You don't need to be an American citizen to do that.
I guess, yeah.
Schwarzenegger would do that.
Yeah.
You need to be American to be president.
President.
Yes. No, sorry.
I think it's such a mess here.
You have to be a natural born US citizen. So Ted Cruz would go gay. You know, he's born in Alberta.
That's on TV, which is missing half our slides.
Oh, there's Jules here.
Yeah, you're the students write your full name in the reflection. They're like, I love the feedback at my TA math model. They just give you this report. It was invaluable.
That's weird. Pretty sure one of my students said like national day, you might TA go. That's weird.
Oh, what about that? We're just not analysis.
Daddy.
No, we won't serve.
Aziz?
Close, you ever eat Aziz?
I will just, I'll be vomiting all day if I eat Aziz right now. Literally all day. What? I ate like half of a section, so didn't sit too well. That's why I got this. Yeah, really well. Okay, let's go.
I might lie, hold on.
Come on, Katie.
I have to bring marketing, 1 second.
I'll do that for you.
Sorry, Jeff. Look, I'm going here. Sorry, I didn't really know where you were.
Want to come with me? Sure.
Very well. I'm sorry. You think about the legality of working out of storage? Actually, apparently it's illegal, but it's illegal. Apparently, like, so why not just go for service, but when they are essentially. All I would want, because I was debating on my rent office. It's like a stove cell, and they have an office. And now I think I can pay $2 for storage unit. My laptop can wait to go around and use it. Oh, that's right. So I would need power for that spare battery, but I can talk about it.
I feel like you just like
No, I'm not, I used to rent from the library, but there's nowhere to park. I first parked in my library. There.
That's the new thing.
Like, first of all, there's no wonder. You have an office. I don't know, I'm less productive.
You're dealing with your space.
That's what I'm saying, I think like a weird different blocks, like that. Do you really think I'm more productive in shares? I think I would be. Like I'm more productive here. Like I'm probably at the same level of efficiency here, watching the plan at home. Because it's like, oh, I don't know what to do after this TV show that downloaded, or let's do this, or watch some YouTube video, and maybe. But I think I can also solve the problem. Maybe I just need to buy another table. Then another room.
We're standing up. I feel like you're
Or I think I just need a table that doesn't have my computer on it, my desktop.
Yeah, that's not something that
Well, one thing that's space, but it's also like, I've got two monitors. Plus it's like, somewhere else. Like there's two screens, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't put red on the phone, I didn't put her on the phone.
I just said these here, still, everyone's having to
Oh no, I hate going, like that thing, I hate going there. Your apartment closes your eyes. That's where my walk. You have to drive. That's the thing, but I don't wanna walk because then it's just so much time. And I can't even go to the Waterloo Public Library because it's paid parking, starts at 5 p.m. Between 9 to 5 p.m. at the Waterloo Library during the weekdays. They're open until 9 or 11 or something, so you can go late, but. Then I have some patient that are going where I could drive through uptown and then four traffic lights to go through. This is why I'm looking at a storage locker and I see Jacob or something, so I get on the highway, up to see Jacob.
I'm sure there are a lot of jobs and you make fun of use in one here.
It's like, yeah, it's like a, yeah, it's like retail, very fast, we're able to. Maybe I could just, I could just go to some coffee shop and take it, they're really important.
Yeah, buy $10 would be.
I wouldn't even buy food. I guess that's true, that wouldn't be.
That's basically Starbucks.
You literally just want to work in Starbucks. If I don't want to work in Starbucks, I have to remember to park your
And they don't help.
It's awesome. They don't know the lights, not driving over there.
Storage locker.
Yeah. But I guess the thing is, in a storage locker, I still have to buy table and carry, I will just buy that my own, like.
You have a desk and all.
Oh, I guess I can go to the library, why don't I do that? Yeah. I can do that.
And then you don't want to.
What I want, I can't get, or I have to, what do we get the rules? To buy a treadmill desk. I think I would like that.
If they have to move, why do you?
Yeah. Cause I'm so sedentary, but the guy would just walk.
Well, that's good.
Or like sometimes I run the treadmill, I haven't done it in a long time, but like, you know, I think, well, I could be watching TV or something while doing this, but I can't because I can't drop my iPad.
It's not a podcast.
I could, but then we use the headphones and they, oh, I was really better one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to optimize my time, but I'm worried I go down this path, of spending too much time trying to optimize and then you reach a point where if you know, the amount of podcasting we can listen to one day, you think, well, I'm listening to podcasts while I'm wandering, but then I stretch out the amount of time I've wandered in 20 minutes, so I finish the podcast. So is it actually any more efficient? What do I see before? I'm so mad I went down this, there's this $40 bill on the day buy, and then Tuesday or tracking went up to $90. Plus, it's a cheap deal. Staples card ticket. $60. Staples door. No, because the issue is the desk that I have, I don't have space on, so like 2 monitors. You should hear about that line door. I'm going to do that. That's right. I'm gonna get like 2 sawhorses. It's really. I don't even need 2 sawhorses. I just need 5 pieces away. Do I need to? I really so why do you yeah.
Because, I really like.
I should probably use 5. I mean,
Right now. I don't have any.
Power tool approved in the
Actually,
basement?
like in one.
Yeah.
This is brilliant.
Just get you going.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing.
Like, I want to be more self.
Oh, wait, how am I getting upstairs?
Yeah.
So,
No, you can't get it. Okay, well, I'm getting it. I'll have to use chairs or something. Yeah, we could rent the elevator, which is,